is Panos Kotzathanasis, and this is Bad Accent Reviews. Today we are going to speak about Missing by Keisuke Yoshida, a Japanese film that has already made a significant festival run and will be now screening in Toronto Japanese Festival in May. Regarding the story of the film, the movie actually starts immediately with no introduction or whatever, and we are launched in the story of Saori and Yutaka, the wife and husband, whose daughter Miu has been missing for 3 months. Her mother is truly desperate to find her, and she's rather vocal about it, and also about the fact that she's worried that the public is losing interest in the case. Only a local broadcasting station continues to provide some coverage, but even there are some issues because Tsunada, the guy who covers the story, tries to keep it decent and not sensual. I will exoticize the case, but what the station needs in order to have more traffic and to draw audience is exactly the opposite. So she struggles with that, Tsunada, since a young protege who follows the exact opposite path than he does, focusing almost exclusively on drawing attention to the news, is getting promotions and is being celebrated by their higher-ups. At the same time, and as is quite expected in these situations, Saori and Yutaka's relationship is not on their best terms. And because Saori essentially accuses Yutaka that he is not as sad or as eager to find her daughter as she is. At the same time, Saori, who had left Miu to her brother in order to attend a concert during the time she went missing, also feels guilty for herself for what she had done, and is also afraid that Yutaka is feeling the same. He tries to convince her that that is not his opinion, but for her it's not so easy to believe it, and this furthers the rift between them even more. And talking about her brother, Keigo, eventually is convinced by Saori and the people from the TV station to give an interview about what happened, since he was the last person she knew. But the interview ends up with a lot of people, particularly in social media, start considering him as being the culprit in a case that essentially makes him the victim of bullying. It starts with his work and it extends to his whole life, essentially. At the same time, the police are doing their best, but they don't seem to have any clues, and the whole case keeps getting. There is no progress in the case. Saori keeps trying to convince the people from the station to continue the coverage, but interest soon deteriorates, and the station demands even more sensualizing of the case in order to continue to cover it, with the focus falling again on Keiko, who also the TV station is the people who promote them as a culprit. Evidently, this is very bad for the young man who finds himself in an even worse situation as time passes. Probably the most interesting thing Keisuke Yoshida does with the film is that the focus is not on the crime. This is not a whodunit, but essentially what surrounds the crime. In that regard, probably the most significant focus falls on the press and the role they play in such cases, with Yoshida portraying them as truly despicable, that they only care about drawing audience and they don't care at all about the victims or the consequences of the particular style of coverage. The fact that Tsunada seems to be one of the few decent people in his station, and the fact that he is getting essentially relegated or put on the side while his protege sees himself being promoted all the time, highlights the fact even more so. And in general, the way the media are portrayed is quite harsh here. they are portrayed in the worst way. It is not just that; it's the way they try to frame Keiko as the culprit, something that they also do in a later case, with them essentially taking the role of the police with the consequences being dire, since the public seems to be quite intently affected by what the press and the media are stating. At the same time, this brings us to the second point of view of the film regarding public opinion and how social media work in this case, with the fact that Saori and Yutaka eventually start being bullied in social media, with something that takes particular toll in Saori, who finds herself reading comments about them being the culprits, or photos of them being photographed at some moments that show something quite different than what is happening in reality. Essentially, like there is a scene when they are buying a cake to celebrate Mew's birthday, although she's not there, and someone takes a photo of them and while buying the cake and puts it in social media and says that instead of being sad, they are buying expensive candy for their own sake, which is indicative of how the film portrays the public and the way social media function in the country. This is not just for Japan; it's something international. There is that also. At the same time, there is another focus. There is a part of the family drama. Initially, it focuses on Saori and Yutaka and how their relationship deteriorates, with what I described before, the guilt of Saori and her being out of her mind, but Yutaka keeping a more detached, let's say, attitude. But this is where one of the most important messages of the film appears, that just because Saori seems to be more eager to find and is more desperate and more dramatic does not mean that the people around her are less sad or less desperate than her. Yutaka repeatedly proves that he is as eager to find his daughter and willing to do whatever in order to achieve that as is his wife. And at some point, the same applies to Keigo, who is misunderstood throughout the movie, particularly from Saori, but eventually through another arc, is also highlighted as someone who feels very, very sorry for what happened to Mew and truly misses her. At the same time, there is another issue here about that, okay, the media do what they do in order for their own sake, and the police are portrayed as kind of helpful but not exactly useful, let's say, or successful. But the people around the couple many of them are very helpful. We have like Yutaka's colleagues are constantly helping him with donations about their sets, and they pass flyers on the street and they need to pay for them, and so the people from the factory that he works give a donation every month for years, even for them to have enough money to continue with their search. And also some people, like there are the people around him, like some restaurant owners and other people of the community, really help them with their sets. And Keisuke Yoshida kind of tones down the message about the public as he presented it through the reaction of the social media. That could also be perceived on another level, like the people who are on social media, they are much worse than the people who live their lives outside of them, in a comment that is intriguing and it seems to lurk underneath what is happening in the story. Regarding it's also worth mentioning that a very, let's say, cheeky trick Yoshida implement is that the t-shirts Saori is wearing seem to highlight her mentality in a very interesting trick that happens throughout the film. Her t-shirts change and there's always a message on them that seems to incorporate the mood of her and maybe even the mood that the audience, the director wanted to have. Okay, regarding the acting, okay, Satomi Ishihara as Saori is the definite star of the film, and is the thing that she does best for the movie is that she implements a sense of tension that is actually something that is missing from Japanese films nowadays, and she does it with her performance, along with the editing of the film, with the cuts also adding in that regard the tension that is there. Sometimes her performance goes a bit too far. It's excessive, particularly in the scenes where she has to overact. She has to show how sad she is. But in general, and considering the nature of her role, I would say that her performance is spot on and quite measured, actually, with the exception of these few scenes. Munetaka Aoki as Yutaka has essentially the exact opposite role, always being calm and trying to keep his wife from completely losing it. She's a very appealing personality, and the fact that he strives to do what she does, but in a completely different, more calm way, actually makes him rather likable. Yusaku Omori as Saori's brother Keigo also is exceptional. The fact that he seems to have some issues, which actually are revealed in the film, makes him how could I say, essentially Yoshida portrays him as the perfect victim. It's not just how the media portrays him, it's also the fact that he's timid and has a face that could be described as weird, and the way the media essentially take advantage of that in order to portray him as possible perpetrator, make him the perfect victim. But again, his whole demeanor and particularly what happens toward the end draws much sympathy towards him, and Yusaku Mori portrays this part to perfection, a performance that is also scene-stealing, let's say. Tomoya Nakamura as Tsunada portrays the veteran journalist that finds himself clashing with what he has to do for his job and what the principals dictate him to do. And he portrays this clash quite elegantly in another quite convincing performance here in the film. In general, both the casting and the acting is on a very high level, one of the best traits of the movie. Takayuki Shida's cinematography is characterized by a bleakness overall, which essentially fits the narrative, with the only sunny, let's say, scene coming close to the end in order to present a more optimistic message, let's say, the whole chaos that is the movie. But I would say that this scene is actually one of the weakest in the film. It's maybe too art house, one can say, to the point that it's cliche. If you see the movie, you will understand the scene I'm talking about. Apart from that, however, the tone and the visual tone of the film and the coloring is very fitting and retains a sense of measure throughout, without any exaltations, since the focus here is more on the characters and the comments that I mentioned. The close-ups to Satomi Ishihara definitely work, however, and they are not used excessively. They are quite impactful the way they are implemented in the film. So that's it. Missing is a very good film. The way that Keisuke Yoshida approaches this missing case is very, very interesting, and it's the aspect that essentially sets the film apart from the many that we see in the genre. His comments are spot on, they are very well presented, and the film is well directed, well acted, and well written. For me, it's already among the best of the year. So thank you very much for watching, and in case you like please review all the others that we have on site. Please like and subscribe, and hope to see you again soon. Have a nice day.